Next up on the agenda is the introduction of members. At this point, this is a new item for the Open Meetings Act. All of the members of the commission will indicate where they are currently. We'll start with Jeff.
Jeff D. Hanens, Genoa Township, Michigan.
Glennis.
Glennis McBain, Genoa Township, Michigan.
Thanks, Glennis. Mary Ann.
Mary Ann McCreary, Genoa Township, Michigan.
Jim.
Jim Mortensen, Genoa Township, Michigan.
Eric.
Eric Rauch, Genoa Township, Michigan.
Jill.
Jill Rickard, Genoa Township, Michigan.
And I'm Chris Grajek, Genoa Township, Michigan as well. At this point, I would like to hand the meeting over to Kelly for the election of officers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this being our first meeting of the new year, it is customary and typical for us to do an election of officers. The officers of the Planning Commission include a chairperson, a vice chair, and a secretary. In years past, we've done these as a full slate where you go to elect all three at once. We can do it as a group, or we can also do it individually. Does anyone have any questions, or is there any discussion about that?
My question is, I wasn't aware of a secretary, but okay.
We do have a secretary. Mary Ann has been our secretary for the last few years. Actually, since she got on the commission, she was appointed the secretary.
So unless someone has something bad to say or wants to make a change, I think that Chris and Eric and Mary Ann have been doing an awesome job at this. I'm happy to do some different role if needed, but if you'd like to leave it the same, I think these guys have been doing great.
Is that a motion?
I'm asking in case anybody else wanted to banter and say no. So I would make a motion at this time to nominate Chris Grajek to remain as the chairperson for the Planning Commission, Eric Rauch as the vice chair, and Mary Ann McCreary as our secretary.
Mortensen will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All those in favor, and I'll do a roll
Aye.
call. We'll signify by saying aye. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Glynis?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations to our newly elected chair people and secretary. I'll turn the meeting back over to Mr. Grajek.
Thank you, Kelly. First off is the approval of our agenda. At this point, is there anything on the agenda that is contrary to what the commission had expected? Hearing none, I would ask for a declaration of a conflict of interest, if there is any, by any of the commission members for the subject of the hearing this evening. Hearing none, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, I'd like to thank those that have joined us online for coming to the meeting. For those of you that are watching and wish to address the commission, there's a link to participate through a Zoom meeting. You can also use a telephone to call in. That should be showing up on your screen at this time. Information on how to contact via Zoom or the phone is on the township website. Please note that if you're watching us on the YouTube broadcast, the meeting is slightly behind and is delayed slightly. So if you're on hold waiting for the meeting, you'll be hearing it at a different pace than you would listening to it. So you may want to turn down or turn off your YouTube broadcast. If you're participating by phone from home, please call the number. And once connected, you'll have an audio to hear the meeting, but your voice will be initially muted. When you hear me open the call for the public, please raise your hand in Zoom or press *9 on your phone to alert the monitor that you would like to speak. We'll select an individual participants by their name or by referencing the last 4 digits of their phone number. When you're selected to speak, please state your name, spell your name, provide your address, and begin your comments. Please note that any inappropriate language will result immediately being disconnected from our call. Now, I'm going to make a call to the public now, but it's a little bit different than what we're thinking, given all the information I just gave. This call to the public is to add anything to the agenda that someone feels should be added at this time that does not appear on the agenda. If you would like to speak about the public hearing, that is number one in this case. We will have a separate public call to the public for that particular item. So I will open to a call for a call to the public at this time for any additional items.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes.
Patty Thomas. You didn't do it, there was no approval of the agenda motion.
I apologize. I got ahead of myself. Thank you for that. Do I have
I would be happy to make a motion for the approval of the agenda as submitted.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a second?
Jill Rickard, second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Hearing none, we accept the approval of the agenda, and I thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. All right, we had a call to the public, and in the interim, did our little bit of a soft shoe. Now we're going to close that call to the public, and we'll open the meeting with public hearing number one, which is a review of a special use application, environmental impact assessment, and site plan for a proposed 6,090 square foot church with accessory outdoor uses, including a grotto and Station of the Cross. The property in question is located at 3280 Chilson Road on the west side of Chilson Road, south of Crooked Lake Road. The request is petitioned by Catholic Healthcare International. And do we have the applicant present?
Yes, present.
All right, would you like to tell us what you have with regard to a plan for this particular property?
Yeah, sure. So first off, my name is Scott Tuzian. I'm with Boss Engineering, located at 3121 East Grand River Avenue, Howell, Michigan. I am joined here by Jerry Palzolo, Anna Riley, and Father Tim with Catholic Healthcare International, as well as joined online Mary Swanson, the architect on the project. So as you mentioned, this is located at 3280 Chilson Road, which is on the west side of Chilson Road, just south of Crooked Lake. It's a 40-acre parcel, currently zoned country estate. And what we're doing is we're seeking to construct a approximately 6,000 square foot chapel with some additional complementary uses, such as, we refer to it as a grotto, but I'd like to further clarify it and call it a mural wall, as well as Stations of the Cross and some additional natural site features, which we'll get into in a little bit of detail in a second. So I first want to explain the site as it currently is. The site, as I mentioned, is 40 acres. It's rolling topography. There are sections that are wooded, primarily on the north and the west sides of the site, with a few wetlands located on the far west end of the site near the railroad tracks. There's also a few pockets of open area, one near Chilson Road and one offset about 600 to 700 feet off of Chilson Road. So it is a beautiful site, a lot of trees, a lot of big trees. The vision of this site in Catholic Healthcare International is to create a site for pilgrimage to use as quiet prayer. So yes, there will be a chapel, but it's those complementary uses that are really going to draw people to the site. We wanted to feature the natural features of the site, the vegetation, the topography. We wanted to work with the land as best as possible, preserve as many trees as possible, which again, I believe we've done. At this point in time, I think we're only removing 3 tagged trees and a little bit of brush in order to construct this project. The site was graded and laid out to conform with the existing topography of the site in order to maintain the existing drainage patterns as best as possible. Again, the picture is as low impact development as possible, with not only regard to impact to natural features, but also storm drainage. So just to give you a little bit more background, and as stated in the environmental impact assessment, what we have is we have the chapel. The chapel sits a little over 600 feet off of Chilson Road. It'll be tucked behind some stands of trees, so visibility of the chapel itself will be minimal if negligible. We do intend to have a monument sign, which we recognize will be a separate permitting process, which we intend to follow here in the near future. This site will consist of a couple of parking lots, a primary parking lot near the front. And I'll pause. I believe this is an outdated layout. Kelly, I don't know if
I just noticed that. Let me see if I can get into the other.
So I'll keep speaking while she's looking for the most current layout. So we have the chapel that's offset of Chilson Road. We have a few parking lots, one near Chilson Road and one near the chapel. The primary intent for the site is to direct cars to park at that parking lot closest to Chilson Road to encourage use of the natural features of the site. The desire is to have them go through the Stations of the Cross on their journey over to utilize the chapel and the Adoration Chapel. And again, create that natural pedestrian loop, if you will, within the property. Of course, for people that are not capable of making that route through the trees and the Station of the Cross, we do have the parking lot close to the chapel. In total, we have just under 40 parking spaces, which is compliant with the zoning ordinance and this use. As mentioned before, we have the mural wall, as it's indicated on the plans as a grotto. Again, this is another place tucked amidst the trees to allow a place for quiet prayer and reflection for any that have visited this site. And another feature of the site is located near Chilson Road. It's called the Magnificent Tree of St. Padre Pio. It's kind of on the north side of that curved parking lot there. The intent for this tree, it's a beautiful large tree. There will be a small statue, which we have a picture of on the site plan there in color. That statue will be placed in proximity of that tree. And again, the purpose is to pay homage to this saint, but also provide a place with a natural environment, a natural setting for people to for prayer and reflection. And I keep mentioning prayer, quiet prayer and reflection. Again, that's the intent of the site. We don't intend this to be a place where large gatherings happen every day. We want this natural environment of this site to be preserved as best as possible, to be highlighted and utilized by those who visit. So with that being said, to go through the letters, the planning consultants and engineering consultant letters, they were in general clean letters. There are a few things that we wanted to discuss, and that is the use of curb or lack thereof on our particular plan. As I mentioned before, we want this to be a low impact development, and we believe by excluding curb and gutter throughout this project, we're able to more closely mimic and maintain the existing topography of the site, and therefore maintain the existing drainage patterns of the site. We have a bioswale up at the front of the site, which is a natural low area for the site. In general, it's sandy soils, so infiltration is expected as well. We have a bioswale on the west side of the site behind the chapel. Again, this is a place where natural drainage draws down to as well. So again, preserving what is currently there and working with nature. I would like to address a comment that had come up with respect to trees, landscaping, and screening. We had indicated and provided in our packet some pictures of the south property line. There is an adjacent single-family home to the south. That stand of trees, although it is in the picture seemingly significant, you can see on the right-hand side, there are some dead trees near the power lines. And in a public comment, it is brought to our attention that those trees over the years have just been receding. just due to their age. And we respect that and recognize that, and just trying to be as cooperative with not only the township, but also adjacent homeowners. We would like to add to the plan additional trees along that entire south end where the parking lot is to complete the buffer in anticipation that these trees obviously won't last forever. Additionally, there's been a lot of alarm with respect to two components: the use of the bell for the chapel, as well as potential intended future uses. So to address the first use, the use of the bell, the vision, again, for this site is a place of reflection and quiet prayer. This bell is not intended to have, per se, 8 rings on the 8 o'clock hour. It's perceived to just have maybe 1 or 2 dings for each of the hours between 9 and 9 as presented in the environmental impact assessment. Obviously, they will be quiet. They will need to meet any township ordinances with respect to decibel levels. And again, we don't want to disrupt the neighbors, let alone people on site going through their time of prayer and peace. Secondly is to address the future uses. There has been talk about potential future use of hospitals and medical research facilities and other uses of the like for this particular site. We'd like to just come out and state that although that may have been a vision in the past, and at this point in time, we want to do 2 things. Not only direct that we're here for just this chapel and complementary uses, which is the issue at hand, but also this site, that is not a current vision to have any type of 2 or 3 story hospital or any type of use like that. The site simply can't support a facility of that size, let alone the process we have to go through with the township at that time if we were to propose that. So I just want to put some minds at ease that right now we're here for the chapel and complementary uses, as well as the future vision of that site is not as portrayed or heard about by whether adjacent owners or the community. So with that being said, if there's any questions related to the layout or the engineering side of things, I'd be happy to answer them. If there's any questions with respect to any architectural components, I believe Mary Swanson is still online, and I believe the materials for the building have been provided to the township. And if there's anything specific for Catholic Healthcare International with respect to how this site will be utilized, I will be happy to answer those at this time.
Jim Martinson has 2 questions.
Okay.
First, I didn't get who the presenter is. Who are you and who do you work for?
Sorry, yep, so sorry, we are all in the same room and have to wear masks. I know it's not ideal, but my name is Scott Tuzian. I'm with Boss Engineering, the engineering firm working with Catholic Healthcare International.
But you're with Boss Engineering. There's a real feedback when you speak. That's why I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, we're utilizing.
You're Boss Engineering.
That is correct. We're utilizing a camera on a TV screen, so it's not a typical laptop situation where it might be more clear. So I apologize for that.
Okay, the other, it's not a question. Well, it's a combination question statement. The website of the church in Missouri clearly states that the plan is to have a hospital and a medical school and things like that. Now, the only point I'm making is I believe that our planning commission is going to treat this surgically. We have what's before us. We'll vote on that. But and assuming it gets approved, and I don't know that it will, it is no commitment whatsoever for any plans that are stated on the church's website in Missouri. And that would be a long haul. It would not be compatible in any way with the zoning as it exists now, and there is not sewer and water available for such a project. So I want that clearly understood. We're treating this surgically as a proposal before us right now. Thank you.
Yep, I would like to speak to that, and you are correct. There would be many hurdles with not only respect to the infrastructure of sanitary and water, but also the township process. And I'd like to also clarify that yes, you are correct that the website for Catholic Healthcare International does show the vision for church or other facilities, and that is the vision, but not particularly for this parcel of land. So the vision would be somewhere, hopefully local in the community, but not this particular tract of land.
All right, thank you, Scott. At this point, is there any other member that has a question before I turn this over to Brian?
Yeah, I do. I'm just curious, do they have a concept plan of what they do wish to look at? They're asking for some things like no curb, things that are against our current thinking. And I would just wonder, what is the overall concept plan? How would that relate to drainage? You know, would it be, yeah, a bioswale is typically a swale, not maybe, it looks almost like a rain garden that you're designing there. I'm just kind of a little curious on how everything will lay out in the future, and will this tie in?
Sure. Yep.
Do you have a concept?
Yep, Scott again here. I can speak to that. So as mentioned before, the vision as to the exact future uses, not only with the timeline is unclear, it could be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, who knows? So to address your question, we have kept, so the overall site is that main loop road that circles around the chapel. That allows us to utilize the north and west sides of the site when the time comes that we would like additional uses on this particular parcel of land. On the west side of that circular drive, or just west of, you can see the septic field and the chapel, that is an open area currently. It's a little bit down gradient and heads towards the wetland. So ultimately, if we were to place additional buildings or additional parking on the north or west sides of the site, the intent would be to eventually construct a basin, either detention or retention, pending the infiltrative capacity of the soil to accommodate those future uses. For right now, due to the minimal additional impervious, we wanted to try to keep that low impact. And for right now, again, we thought that the use of 2 of these small pockets, which you are right, they're going to have more of the rain garden look to promote infiltration. Those would be sufficient in volume to accommodate what we're currently proposing, yet they're out of the way enough to not inhibit any future uses.
Thank you, Scott. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mary Ann.
Yes, so I'm a little confused here because I thought you had addressed that the information that's publicly available about the intent of what this organization was planning on doing is not going to happen here. And then yet I believe that you just commented to Commissioner Rickard that you are planning additional buildings on this site.
Right, yep, so I'll speak to that. So the initial comment was with regard to what the public concern is, or what the website, what Jim Mortensen had brought up, the website says with respect to healthcare facility, like a hospital or medical research facilities. That was more geared towards that using the hypothetical that Joe wanted us to run down with respect to how does this infrastructure we're proposing now, how can it accommodate future uses? That's what I was gearing towards. So to answer, the vision of what's going to go on the site is not known. You know, we know that this site won't support certain facilities as mentioned before, but it certainly will support complementary uses to the chapel and these outdoor areas of reflection and prayer. It's just unknown at this time exactly what that is. And of course, once that time comes and that vision becomes clear, we'll certainly be back.
So looking at the site layout of this, it's very obvious that the intent is you're saving room, or you're posturing yourself for room for growth. And you know, we are talking about the future of this too, with respect to how it sits currently in its zoning. So there is a consensus from your standpoint that there is going to be a future edition of something that would be, as you has quoted, compatible with this. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. The primary focus, I'm Jerry Pellizzolo, I'm the president of Catholic Healthcare International. The primary focus of this campus is for prayer and meditation, quiet prayer and meditation. We want the one facility, the chapel, to have for masses periodically and things like that. But right now, it's all natural trails. And that's our intention at this point. We don't really have future, it cannot be our vision. We have a vision to replicate a hospital from our patron, to do a medical school, those types of things, not here. This could never support it. And it's not, this area is not meant for that. It will be somewhere else when we get to that point, praise God, when it happens and everything. This is strictly just for prayer meditation. Is it conceivable that sometime in the future we could look at something? And we did try to keep things set up so that they would have possible. But right now it's all trails, and that's what we wanted to have, to be quite honest with you. And we don't have any other plans or purpose for it at this point at all.
And to add on to that, yes, the north side of the site is kept open with this site layout, but the other intent is to maintain as much of the natural vegetation environment as possible. Had we gone any further north, you can see on the sheet that's on the screen right now, that curved line just to the north of basically all the park, or all the drives and driveway. We'd be getting into the tree line and starting to take out trees. So that is an additional primary focus of this layout, is to avoid that vegetation.
Yeah, I hope you have a chance to go by and walk the property, because it's absolutely gorgeous. There are trails, and you'll see the purpose really is for people to just be inspired by our patron saint, by the saints and the other things that we have on there, but strictly really for prayer and meditation. That's the whole purpose of this.
And
I
my second question is, what is the purpose of the bell? What's the significance of the bell?
So I'll speak first, and then I'll pass it off to Jerry. I think a primary is to replicate the church of St. Padre Pio, and that particular church did have a bell. Again, from our standpoint, which not everybody will certainly agree with, but bells, when used properly, you know, people have memories of bells. I acknowledge that, yes, it does make sound, and some people won't like that, and we can appreciate that. So we want to find the balance point between what is perceived as too much and what we find as a good balance that provides that ambiance and complementary use and replication of the original church.
And how big is the original church?
It's essentially based on the replicate. We're essentially replicating that church. This was the church that was in San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy in 1916 when Padre Pio arrived there. It was the only thing there, and it's a small chapel. It's not a church, it's a chapel. It only seats 80 people in the main side, and then on the back side it has a very small adoration chapel. It'll seat about 15 or so, but it is so it's small. And like Scott said, there was a bell, and we're literally trying to replicate it. When you see the interior, it is absolutely beautiful, and it's a replica so that people can experience our patron without having to go over to Italy. That's essentially what we're trying to do on that site. That mural wall that's there right now, that's a replica of the mosaic wall that's behind the main altar in the church where our patron said Mass every day. That's why that's there. It's the Madonna and Child and Padre Pio with the angels. That's why we're doing this. People who have a devotion to Padre Pio can come and have a pilgrimage here without going over to Italy. That is truly what our purpose here is. All the other ancillary things that we've talked about that you see and people have been concerned about really aren't the issue with this property. But yeah, the bell is there, and it really is, you know, it's a key feature on the church, and we would like to have the ability to use it on a very limited basis, because it really does add on the call to prayer and things like that on the hour. So.
Thank you. I understand the historical significance, especially behind European churches, and it was the center of their community. That's where everybody gathered. And in a village where that was the focal point and where everybody went, it was obviously the bell gave a communion point to say it's time to gather. So I just, to be able to replicate it, I understand the desire, but we're not a little village in Italy. So my concern for every hour is a little bit. I have a concern with every hour from 9 to 9. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the commission? Go ahead, Jeff.
So it's more of a comment of I'm looking forward to hearing both of our consultants' opinions on this as well. And I just wanted to set a context for the applicant. Looks like an awesome project. Absolutely does. But we've had some other projects very similar to this in our community already, and it became, this is all I'm going to use it for is this. It's tranquil and it's serene and then they ran into some financial challenges, and next thing you know, they're renting it out. Weddings on Fridays, weddings on Saturdays, family reunion, concerts, things like, this gives the potential, any kind of type of chapel gives the potential for some other uses. And clearly there's a vision for the property that's not just this little 1/5 piece of the property. So we're just, as Mr. Morton said, eloquently said, we're only looking at just this chapel and what you're trying to build right now. But in the back of our mind, we keep thinking, I'm thinking about a bigger picture. So I just want to hope you understand the questions that we are coming at you with. So thanks.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So is there an operations plan? I've been looking through the information and data, and I haven't seen anything that maybe like a chart that specifically spelled out hours of operation for things like these masses or periodic events. How often should we expect those? What are the timeframes that those are limited to? And as I think about this, you keep hearing periodic masses, prayer, meditation, trails, tranquil. I think that's all great. It'd be great to see that written down so that there's something concrete for this specific special land use request, to be able to make sure that we're all holding one another accountable to those things and that it's not overbearing or overburdening to adjacent properties. And so could someone explain what the operations plan is? And if I missed it in the documentation, could you point it out to me?
Yeah, we have it written out and we're developing it but it would be at this point periodic masses, and I think at its height, once we get it, it would never exceed a mass a day, but most likely it would be potentially a mass a week or a couple of weeks a month. Because we don't have frankly, we don't have an on-site priest there to be able to do it, to maintain it. So it's not going to be a high volume at all. And it will be on special occasions. Right now, it will just be on special occasions as we get going. But I would say it's certainly, Father Tim, I don't know, I would say it certainly would not exceed a mass a day. So beyond that point, does that answer your question? As far as hours of operation, I think it would be normal, light to dusk type of thing, business hour types of things. Our masses certainly will be during the daytime. They'll either be in the morning or at noon, most likely, that type of thing. So, and as far as the trails are concerned, obviously people are welcome to come anytime it's daylight to come and walk through the trails. So anything to add to that, anybody? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it begins to. I think, understanding the open hours and having that written down on paper is important, along with expectations of services. So when you said periodic masses, I guess in my mind, I thought a couple times a month when I heard the word periodic, but I also heard now, potentially up to one time a day, so 30 times a month. And then even knowing the hours of when those would happen, I think would be important, because, that would represent a peak hour or peak flow of usage here. And so, that's traffic, that's noise, that's all sorts of things. And that would be helpful for me, at least, in understanding this project better. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at on it. And I think for me, an operations schedule would help provide some boundaries for this property moving forward. Because when it comes to the special use requirements here, I think how often it's being used really ends up telling the future story of how encumbering it is on the adjacent properties.
That's a very good point. I have a question for Kelly. If this were to be approved, that special use permit, any change to this piece of property after an assumed approval would require another special use permit, would it not? Or a modification of it?
The ordinance sets 25% as the threshold. So in terms of intensity of a special land use, if the occupancy increases more than 25%, if the intensity increases more than 25%, then it has to be resubmitted. So there is a little bit of grace in the way the ordinance is written, no pun intended, to allow the use to continue and expand up to 25%, and then it would need to come back.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the commission before I head to the consultants?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to add that Fire Marshal Rick Boisvert is with us this evening. I know it's not typical for him to be here. He submitted a letter late in the day today based on some of the things I think that were going out on social media the last couple of days. In addition to that, he's alerted me that he believes he didn't review the version of the plan that's on the screen right now. And you probably noticed that we had the wrong version in the packet as well. So when we're done with our normal consultant review, I'd like for you to please give Fire Marshal Boisvert the opportunity to give his thoughts and comments to the commission.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Scott with Boss here. I'd like to add to that. Rick Boisvert's most current letter does recognize that a 12,000 gallon fire cistern is proposed for the site, which was not originally proposed in the first submittal. So that statement alone indicates that he had seen this particular site.
He indicated that there was a comment letter that you've resubmitted with the site plan.
Oh, okay, so he saw the letter.
So he saw the letter, but he didn't get to see these plans. I'm not sure what happened, and I apologize if we messed up and didn't send the right set of plans. But luckily, he's available this evening and he's with us, so we'll let him kind of go through some things. We may look, if we get to a motion, just to allow the fire department to do a review after the planning commission to make sure all of their concerns are addressed.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. I'm going to move along if we don't have any other commissioner questions at this time. And the way we'll handle, I'm sorry. Anyhow, way we'll handle this is we're going to let Brian say his piece, Brian Borden, our planner. And if there are members of the commission that would like to ask questions, please hold those until Brian's done with his full presentation and we can go back to it. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. Before I dive into the process and my review letter, I just wanted to hit one quick point off of Mr. Mortenson's question and Kelly's follow-up. So section 19.6, just so the applicant, commission, and public are aware, section 1906 of the zoning ordinance addresses amendments to existing special land uses. So there are two types. There are major amendments and minor amendments. So even if a change or an amendment does not necessitate a new special land use review, it still would need to be reviewed and approved according to the standards of the ordinance. So that could entail a site plan or a sketch plan, but maybe not necessarily the need to rehear or reconsider special land use criteria. So I just wanted to put that out there, that it isn't just either it's a special land use or it's not. There is, you know, the commission and or staff would certainly be reviewing any amendments to an approved special land use in this case or in other cases as well. So I just wanted to put that out there, just a little expansion on that conversation. So that being said, I am going to dive into my review letter. So as you've noted, the request that's before you tonight is consideration of special land use, site plan, and an impact assessment that goes with the project. Procedurally, this goes through the Planning Commission for review, public hearing, and a recommendation. Ultimately, the Township Board has the final review and approval authority over the special land use, site plan, and impact assessment. So any action you're to take tonight, be it for or against, aside from a tabling, would be in the form of a recommendation to the board, which I think the commissioners already know. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So that being said, working off of my most recent review letter, which is dated February the 2nd of this year, I did start with the first section related to the general special land use standards. Those are found in section 19.03 and are intended to apply a set of criteria to a request to ensure that it is compatible with surrounding area, with your master plan, with the capacity of infrastructure and utilities, et cetera. So diving into that section, the first comment I've put forth is related to compatibility with the master plan. So the master plan identifies this site and the surrounding, or actually it's the adjacent properties, as agriculture and country estate. Now that category is intended for agricultural uses and single family residential uses on larger lots, 5 acres and above. It is also intended to sort of help protect and preserve any natural features that are generally prevalent in this particular category and where this category is applied. There is, however, no mention of institutional uses. So what I put forth in my review letter is that in order to make a determination of compatibility with the master plan, I believe that it is up to the commission and ultimately the township board to ensure compatibility. We need to make sure that this proposal is not going to adversely affect natural features or the agricultural uses in this particular area. So as long as the commission feels confident on that, you can make a clean finding under the master plan, but I feel those are important items to consider. The next two items are sort of tied together, and they're related to the impacts on surrounding land uses. I've broken it down into two, the first being tied to traffic. There was a little bit of discussion on that earlier. What I put forth in my review letter is really kind of a discussion point, and it's probably not a big deal, but I wanted to at least bring it up to the commission as a concern I noted in my original review letter, and ultimately let Gary chime in if he has any concerns. But the point is really that while the use is not such that a traffic impact study is required, in other words, the size of the building proposed and the trip generation expected by the use and the size of the building does not cross the threshold that requires a traffic impact study. Just thinking about the site in general and looking at the area, I did raise a question as to whether there would be any potential traffic impacts for northbound traffic, and specifically noting that the lack of a left turn lane would potentially have an impact at peak times. And what I didn't want to see was the use cause, significant backups for northbound traffic by being blocked by essentially vehicles trying to make left turns into the site. That being said, ultimately any work in the roadway is going to be subject to review and permit by the road commission. And I merely brought it up as a potential item that I wanted to at least have discussion about. If Gary tells me there's no concern, it's a non-issue, I'm okay with that. But I did want to put it out there and let the commission know that it is something that I put forth in my first letter, kept in my second letter, and you may wish to get some additional comment from the engineering consultant as it relates to that item. The second item, as it relates to impact on the surrounding area, we've already had some discussion about as well, and that's tied to the bell tower. In other words, we're looking at basically a rural residential agricultural type area. The introduction of a bell tower certainly has the potential to be of some impact. I don't know exactly what the extent of that impact may or may not be at this time, which is why I put forth the suggestion that the commission might want to request either decibel ratings for the proposed bell tower, or even take it a step further and have a sound study prepared that would take into consideration not just what the bell tower is emitting in terms of noise, but also what the surrounding area generally has as a noise level, depending on time of day, whether traffic during peak hours of travel. Obviously, there's maybe a little bit more noise in the area, but again, the nature of the area, this isn't a heavily traveled area. It's not high usage in terms of dense, intensive land uses. So I certainly think there's a potential here that we might want to get a little more information to make sure that it ultimately is compatible with the surrounding area. And then the closing comment under the special land use standards is simply deferring to Brighton Area Fire Authority and the township engineering consultant, especially as it relates to impacts or potential capacity of infrastructure and services. So anything that they have provided in terms of their review letters, definitely want to make sure the applicant addresses to the commission's satisfaction. Given the proposal for a church, there are also specific use requirements that apply to this project. Those are found in paragraph L of section 3.03.02. In short, those standards are met, at least based on my review and my findings. The only comment I put forth was a general statement, which has already kind of been addressed as well. But that is tied to the fact that should a private school, should a child daycare, should another use be proposed for this site as it relates to the church in the future, it would be subject to review considerations and procedures of the township zoning ordinance. So that's just a general comment, but I wanted to put that out there. And again, I think we've already initiated some amount of discussion as it relates to that particular item. Diving into the actual site plan. So now we're getting into some of the specifics of the site layout. My first comment is tied to the building. So the proposed building is built of essentially brick and limestone. It's a full masonry building. I know that Kelly has some materials in her background there, and I understand the project architect is on the call as well. So my normal comment is that I request applicants to present material and color samples. I do realize that via remote meetings, that's maybe not as impressive as it is in person, but I did keep it in my review letter. And thank you, Kelly, for displaying those. That was very kind, very Vanna White-like of you. So, so anyway, it's a full masonry building. Again, in my opinion, a very nice looking building, certainly use of quality materials, but I wanted the commission to see that level of detail. The next item was also, again, brought up in the petitioner's initial comments, and that is tied to the parking lot. Now, the ordinance requires curbing around the entirety of the parking lot, and it does prohibit the use of bumper blocks unless the Planning Commission approves their usage. And the phrase in the ordinance is that you determine that they are necessary. So you do have the discretion to allow them as they are proposed, but again, it's you need to make a finding or at least have some discussion that you believe it's in the best interest of the overall site design, which I believe ultimately is being tied to grading, drainage, stormwater management, et cetera. So that'll be a point that will need to be discussed. You do have, though, as I mentioned, the discretion to allow the bumper blocks in lieu of the curbing as has been proposed. The next item is tied to the landscape plan for the site. So they do have some new plantings that are proposed. And as noted with the initial presentation, they are protecting and preserving the vast majority of the trees on site. So not a lot of disturbance to the existing trees, and they are proposing some new. That being said, they have asked again for the commission to use its discretion and allow some minor reduction in new tree plantings for the greenbelt and parking lot areas in relation to the retention of the existing plantings. So in other words, you have the ability to allow them to go forward with the landscape plan as proposed, given that they are retaining all of the additional trees, as opposed to, I believe, the greenbelt plantings. I think they're proposing, I'm trying to scroll super fast. They're proposing 6 and utilizing the existing tree canopy towards the road frontage to count towards the additional 8 that would otherwise be required. So this is a situation we often run into, and I know the commission is familiar with and has seen this before. Essentially what it amounts to is if there are good high quality trees in that area, obviously it doesn't make any sense to either overcrowd them with new greenbelt trees or to force removal of mature vegetation to then have it replanted with something younger and obviously less mature and less sizable at that point. So you do have the ability to grant that as well under your landscape provisions. The next item the petitioners already acknowledged, and that is that in the future, should the project be approved, they will need to obtain a sign permit from the township prior to installation of signage. And I bring that up a couple of reasons. One, there aren't any sign details included. They do depict the appropriate placement of a future monument sign, so it's in the right location. It meets the setback required, but we don't have any details of it. And I also want to make sure the petitioner is aware of it, so that, again, in the future, if this project is approved, it has occurred in the past, not just in your community, but in several others that require sign permits. But if not explicitly noted, oftentimes petitioners, developers feel that they got plan approval and that gives them the ability to put in the sign that's been approved. So just another point of making sure the petitioner understands, and they've already acknowledged that. And then my last one is really, again, something for the commission to consider. This probably isn't a very big item, but it is apparent on the site plan that there's a bit of fencing that meanders across the southerly side lot line. I'm not entirely sure whose fence it is intended to be, though I did take from the revised submittal that I believe it may actually even be the neighbor's fence, and it may encroach onto the petitioner's property. But I did bring up, at least for discussion purposes, that the commission might want to use this opportunity of a new development, a new proposed use, to correct that encroachment and have the fence realigned properly. Now, I don't know exactly what that would entail, if that is something that is, it's an older fence, or it would potentially disrupt the fence that's been there, if it would impose any type of adverse impact on the neighbor. I certainly wouldn't want to have that occur as part of this suggestion, or even if it were to result in the need to take down some other mature trees or vegetation. It probably isn't worth it. But anytime I see some little oddity like that, I do think it's appropriate to bring it up as part of a development review. And it would be within your purview to request or require that it be corrected properly. But again, not sure that it's that big of a deal, and certainly don't want to impose any type of hardship or burden upon anybody by suggesting that it has to be done. Just bringing it up for discussion with the commission. Mr. Chair, that's all I have at this time. Obviously happy to take any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from the commission? Don't see any. Go
Brian,
ahead.
sorry, I have a question for you. You had indicated, I believe in here in your summary, that there was an anticipation of 95, is it 95 persons for proposal of this, of the chapel there. And in the application, the applicant states it's approximately 80. Do we have a, where's the discerning difference? Do we know?
So there is a floor plan that's included in the submittal with the architectural drawings. It is there are 80 seat spaces for patrons, and then there are an additional 15 that I believe are related to the church itself. So that would be, oh, I gotta move some windows around, but yeah, that's it up on the screen now, I believe. So there, the actual the workings of the church would occupy the other 15, was my understanding, but there was space for 80 outside patrons. So that's the total 95. That's where that came from.
So then the additional would be what is presumably in the northern portion, that it shows like a semicircle?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions from the commission? All right, seeing none. Gary, you're up. Gary from TerraTech, and we'll ask the engineer again questions after he's completed his presentation. So commission, if you would hold the questions for afterwards. Go ahead, Gary.
All right, thank you. We put together a letter dated February 3rd. I think this was our second review of the site. They've changed the site around a little bit since our first review. As far as the special use permits and such, they are needing letters of approval from the health department for their well and septic systems. They should be provided to the township for the records, because there's no public water or sanitary sewer for this site. So they're going to be using on-site facilities for that. They do have a letter from the road commission for the drive entrance. And in that letter, the road commission does state, and I've stated it here again, that any change or future additions to this will require another look at the road situation and possible improvements to the approach on Chilson Road. And that could include a left-hand or a bypass lane and those kind of things with the proposed use that it has and the times of use that a normal church is, weekends and such. It's normally an off-peak time for transportation on the roadway. So the road commission has looked at that. We have looked at it and believe that if there's any addition to that, we will take another look and see about that. But at this time, on a left-hand or a bypass lane on the northbound side doesn't appear to be warranted for this site, for this type of use. So I left it in my letter as such, so it's there. So the bigger item deals with the site plan and drainage and grading, between the two of them together. So we are recommending that the site have the curb and gutter on the parking areas and the roadway coming in and out of it. Two reasons for that. One being to control the stormwater and direct the stormwater to the bioswales, the rain gardens, whichever they want to call them, and make sure that there's a positive route for the rainwater to those swales that's being generated off those roadways. And the other is to control vehicular movements on the site. Without curb, that big arc of a circle there, and open area to the north and to the west, creates a very nice overflow parking area that could be inadvertently or maybe intentionally used for that type of use. With a curb there, it could contain all the vehicle movements to the parking area, to the parking lot. Now, you have sidewalk along the parking lot and along the south side of the road already. Adding curb there really is a matter of integrating that with the sidewalk itself. And then the only additional curb would be on the north side of that roadway going around to the outside. So it helps control the site as to what's going on. It keeps the rainwater from the roadway from just going across the sidewalk where people are walking, and it helps direct the water to the intended facilities, both in the east and west side of the site there. So we would continue to recommend that as part of the site improvements to this site. So I think right, and they have demonstrated that the storage volume of the swales that they're proposing is going to be large enough for the 100-year storm event. So I think that included all of our comments. They've addressed the other ones while they were in the iteration between the first review and the second plan. So, one last thing is they did add and I know the fire department will probably comment on it also, but the fire tank is being added to the site. One thing I would like to see is how that is going to be operated and maintained. It is a large tank of water. I'd like to make sure that there's obviously proper backflow protection from the well, because you're using the same well to fill the tank as you're using to serve the people in the church. So I want to make sure there's backflow protection on that and how it's going to be maintained, kept from freezing, those kind of things. So it's and I did note, I think the hydrant is right there about 40 feet from the church itself. So I guess the fire department can comment on the proximity of the hydrant to the building itself and its usefulness and being so close. It just seems like it's a little close to me. And if I was fighting a fire on that, I don't think I'd want to be that close to the building to try and hook up to a hydrant that's there, but that's up to the fire department. So I'll leave that to them. So with that, I'll close.
All right, thank you, Gary. Is there any of the commissioners that have questions for our engineer? All right, seeing none, I'm going to turn it over for a review of the fire department's comments with Rick Boisberg. Rick, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Let me know if you can hear me all right.
Loud and clear.
All right, sounds good. Obviously, I sent over this letter very late this afternoon. I expressed some of the same concerns that were brought to my attention through my inspectors and our fire chief. Reference some stuff floating around on social media. I feel like the Planning Commission's done a good job addressing all those concerns right off the bat. We see the same thing, that the site can't handle it, and for fire protection and access, the way it's shown right now, or at least the drawing that we most recently saw, would not be able to address should a medical school, research facility, or anything larger than this be proposed in the future. To touch on Gary's comment, reference the hydrant location for the tank. 40 feet is our minimum distance for a fire hydrant from a building. That's based off of an NFPA standard. So we kind of stick to those conditions on most projects. There are some unique properties around that you will see from many years ago in the township that don't meet that, but we're trying to stay consistent with that 40-foot distance at a minimum. If there is the ability to put it a little bit further away or relocate the tank, we would be amicable to that as long as it's somewhere in the vicinity of that church building. The only other comment I had and the reason I wanted to speak was I received a submittal package for this that included a very similar drawing to the first, but had a number of my comments addressed, but did not see or did not show that meandering entrance drive in that configuration. It was more of a straight drive in. The way that apparatus movement comes through that driveway off of Chilson Road through the two-way parking area is not something we would typically allow. We have to be able to navigate these driveways and parking lots during non-emergency hours as well, and not just presuming nobody's driving on these roadways in the opposing lanes. So for us, we'd like to work with Boss, and if the planning commission is okay with it, work with Kelly in your commission to try to see. It may require softening some of the curve, maybe widening some of it a little bit just to accommodate a 50-foot truck, as opposed to trying to cut corners. The one-way meets our requirements. The signage is shown now. Even in front of the church, they gave us a little bit more width with that drop-off lane, which is helpful for bypassing of traffic. So other than that, I mean, it appears it's going to be built as a type 2 non-combustible building with some limestone and brick. Even if it were a type 5 wood frame, I think that tank and our first alarm assignment on any fire that we may have there would be substantially protected.
Thank you, Rick. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Rick? All right, hearing none. Thank you all for your presentations on things. At this point, I'd just like to mention that there have been a number of public comment letters that have come in. A lot of those, I believe, are uploaded onto the website or are available through Kelly. If you're interested, those of you that wrote those letters, we appreciate the input, and some of you indicated that you would be around for a call to the public, so that's up next. I will now make a call to the public. For those on a call on the phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be unmuted. For those of you that are on the Zoom meeting, please raise your hand to be recognized, and remember to state your name, spell your name, in addition to providing your address.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting for people to raise their hand, I'll just mention there were 3 letters that I received after I sent the email this afternoon. I just want to recognize these 3 letters because there's 4 that you folks have not seen. One was from James Branchow. He lives at 3611 Westfall Drive. He's concerned with what he believed to be a rezoning, the noise, the bells ringing, noise pollution, and concerned with the future use of the property, and if something happens to this user, what would happen, and then also just concerned with the change for their rural area. The second letter was from Mike Mandelk. He is at 3275 Chilson Road. He's not in favor of some of the implied issues of development for the site. He has concerns with elevated lighting and the bell ringing every hour. Would like to see maintaining the value of his investment and the residential character. The next letter is from Tim Park, also expressing his disapproval. He's at 3529 Westfall, concerned with the impacts of this use, commotion and noise and events. And then finally, a letter received from Billy Martin, who resides at 4678 Richardson Road, is opposed to the special use permit. It's zoned agricultural and should be used for that purpose. There's already too much traffic in the area. Want to keep the area as is, farms and homes with property, concerned with the church bells, and requests for denial. So those are the letters that I received this afternoon that you have not seen. And then we do have a number of people with their hands raised, so we will start to move into the public comment. The first one is Bill Galvin. Bill, can you hear me? You'll have to unmute yourself.
Hello, Kelly.
Yes, I can hear you.
So I prepared a couple comments.
Just real quick, if you wouldn't mind, state your name and give us your address and spell your name for our recording secretary, and then go ahead with your comments.
Of course, my name is Bill Galvin, 4037 Chilson Road, and I'm here to address the proposed site plan and special land use at 3280 Chilson. First of all, thank you to the planning commissioners for serving our community. As a previously elected official, I certainly appreciate your dedication. I have no significant concerns if this site stays within the proposed parameters. I do have reservation about church bells ringing hourly, which will be heard for miles. It would create what I consider to be an urban or suburban element in this rural environment, which is exactly what I hoped to escape when we moved here 1 year ago. I'm also concerned about the lack of engagement and the communication during the government-enforced lockdowns, which have prevented all of us from traditional communication and information sharing. For some of us, meaning residents, electronic meetings have been beneficial. But for many, it's resulted in backpedaling of public participation. Those who lack technology or are not proficient are disproportionately disengaged, and being locked out of Township Hall during a meeting because of the state-imposed restrictions has unintended consequences and potentially silences some people's voices. Typically in this situation, having concerns, I would have approached neighbors by knocking on their doors. But again, due to COVID, this is not a respectful or a safe practice. In fact, last Monday, the Board of Trustees even acknowledged avoiding door knocking to survey residents. So my initial request of the Planning Commission is to table this discussion so that we can all catch our breath and properly engage residents. And I think this is a reasonable and prudent request in this unusual time of COVID. More specifically to what was presented, my other concerns are the vision for a multi-phased, densified campus. And even if it does not include a hospital, the vision does include multiple buildings with various commercial uses, from long-term care facilities to public policy research centers, and perhaps other unknown commercial uses. So I'm concerned about the lack of clarity of what may be forthcoming, and I'd like the proponent to be more clear in what before the Planning Commission moves forward with any approval this evening. A phase one approval may very well be perceived as pre-approvals for expanded and yet to be determined uses. I agree with much of their mission. As a practicing Catholic, this is not a religious atmosphere, but just acknowledgement. But I do question why a global destination in a pilgrimage style campus is needed precisely on this rural, disconnected location on Chilson Road. So I just want to point out that we live here year round while the pilgrims do not. And on a lighter note, I always have a little bit of humor, but on a lighter note, it'll be -6 degrees this week, which is not exactly destination weather. I don't need to tell you or walk you through the zoning and how these commercial uses are not permissible and deviate from all the zoning. You have your letters and your expertise and background and knowledge in that. But even a light commercial future land use would require significant community investment to extend additional infrastructure, roads, traffic growth, stormwater management, water, sewer, and utilities for multiple buildings on a campus that could be viewed as attracting densification. So the economics of the campus vision are worthy of advanced studies before step one is launched, in my opinion. My perspective in the agricultural community is to stay true to our property rights and our religious freedoms, to maintain the existing character while promoting economic development where it's intended. And when we have places where that is intended in Genoa Township. But we need public dialogue to understand the proponent's vision and the impact and gather more insight from the residents and the neighbors who are going to be affected by this. So I'm asking the Planning Commission to dot their i's and cross their t's. Even if tonight's proposal is for a small chapel, it may be perceived as step one pre-approval for a larger multi-phase development. These are often bifurcated decisions, which are not always the best way to make a decision in this environment. I believe the way forward usually lies somewhere in between a simple yes or a simple no. And I do not think it's fair to the proponent that a phase one approval potentially be perceived as consent for additional development and growth of any size where it's not currently permissible. So I'm requesting that the township use their tools that are in their box. The Planning Commission use their planning tools to conditionally approve the site plan if they want to go in that direction of approval. I would request that an approval be conditionally approved with the language and limitations not to expand beyond tonight's proposal and to address the bell tower concerns. I'd also like to see more engagement of the public and the proponent in a mutual dialogue with the township. And maybe we can attract more future developments in a portion of the township where it's more suited for the highest and best use, as is intended with our planning and zoning tools. So with that, thank you to everybody for your time and your dedication and your attention. And I look forward to listening to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Bill. Kelly, do we have others?
So the next one in the queue I just have is Bob. Bob, are you able to hear me? Unmute yourself, or I think I already did. Oh. Bob, can you hear us? Let's try this again. Bob?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, we'll need you to turn down your background.
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Okay, is
Go
that
ahead,
better?
Bob, and give us your name and your address, and spell your name, please, for the recording secretary, and then go ahead and address the commission.
Okay. My name is Bob Moran, M-O-R-A-N, and I live at 3985 Timber Green Court, which is about, I'm guessing, a half mile south of the location of which the meeting is a subject tonight.
Bob, this is
Yes.
Chris Grajek. I'd like to interrupt you real quick. We're still getting feedback. If you could turn down whatever it is in the background that you were listening to.
Okay, is that, I think it's a problem with, there you go. Okay, is that better?
Perfect.
Okay, I apologize for that.
Not a problem. Go right ahead.
Again, Bob Moran. I live at 3985 Timber Green Court, which is near the interchange of South Latson and Chilson Road. And I would guess it's about a half mile or so south of the proposed site for the project being discussed tonight. I've been in the township for 5 years, and prior to that, 13 of which were as a resident of Green Oak Township. I followed closely the Latson I-96 interchange, and I was a member of the Green Oak Township Planning Commission at that time. And I thought that the job done by Genoa Township with respect to the campus special sub area was brilliant in terms of focusing on an area where you could draw commercial and large use types of projects. It seems to me that this project before the commission tonight really ideally belongs in that area to the north of Crooked Lake Road and to the west and east of Latson. I have been looking on the internet tonight, and I don't know if it's a little bit of doubt, having dealt with a lot of these proposals in the past, but clearly the intent, and I'm quoting the Diocese of Lansing, is that the 45 acres of land that it donated to this project envisioned everything that the applicant tonight says is no longer a portion of the project. And so I would be very concerned that once we start down a path in an area that's designed to be agricultural or residential, is going to be hard to change. My neighbors have come to me, and again, I agree with Mr. Galvin, who says there hasn't been a lot of communication, who are very much opposed to this. And again, it's not the project of a small chapel. It's where this leads us today. I think the Genoa Township master plan, in terms of present land use, does not necessitate or guarantee any special use for commercial church type of organization. And more importantly, the future land use does not indicate that this would be an allowable use in terms of zoning. Again, I think that the township may be going down the wrong road should it decide to approve the application tonight without really thinking through and getting something solid from the applicant of exactly what is going to go in that 40-some acres. Because it's easy to say at this time, which I heard, we do not plan at this time. We no longer believe at this time. Who knows what's going to happen 10 to 20 years down the road? That all says to me that there's a lot more to this particular development than the proposed chapel. But again, I leave it to the people who are the decision makers, who should be looking at their master plan in terms of present land use and future land use. Why would we want to develop outside an area that has yet to be developed in terms of the campus areas? So with that, I commend everybody, the applicant, for coming forward with the information, as well as everybody who's inputted into the project. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Kelly, do we have others?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, moving on. I just unmuted. This is an email address, Mel and Dwayne at yahoo.com. Can you hear me? Mel and Dwayne? I'm asking them to unmute. Mel and Dwayne, can you hear me? It seems like we're having issues with them. We'll go on to the next and mark them. We'll circle back. Okay, next will be John Walbank.
Hello.
Hi, John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I am John Walbank, Wallbank, at 2899 Pardee Road in Genoa Township, of course. My address, my residence is 10 acres at the corner of Westfall and Pardee. The border of the property under discussion here is less than a half mile from me, and some of my other neighbors have already commented or written to the Planning Commission. Were I in a decision-making role in this matter, I would consider it naive of me to think that I'm making a decision only about this particular plan of use. We are not talking about the Catholic Church here. We're talking about a very large, wealthy, and powerful healthcare institution, very competitive. And again, all things are fair in love, war, and salesmanship. And I think that we are being sold a plan here, which is a way of entering into the activity and participation in this community, in this area, that will allow for further expansion. That would, as a large institution, that would only be the reasonable thing to do. There are a number of issues about the specific plan. The church bell I think is that idea is totally outre. I mean, I would like the commission to consider if perhaps a Muslim institution wanted to have a muezzin call to worship periodically from a minaret at that location, or if they would entertain the blowing of the shofar every morning during the Jewish month of Elul. These are religious observances that have nothing to do with healthcare. Thank you. Also, there's been nothing proposed about what the supervision and security of this facility would be. It doesn't sound like it would have full-time resident occupancy, and so that has not been addressed at all. I'm an amateur astronomer, so any lighting issue immediate to my property is very important to me. Religious institutions have, unfortunately, a record of negligent attention to lighting ordinances and care in observing the rights of neighboring properties. There has been a great deal of expansion of building in Genoa and Marion townships, and I would see very reasonably where a large healthcare institution would find many opportunities, business opportunities, to expand in this area. So I am skeptical and, as I said, suspicious of the future plans for this facility, and I'm very much against the rezoning of our agricultural and rural estate area, in any way of altering the character of our community. I've been here 25 years. I've enjoyed it. I've seen growth. That's inevitable. This is not a matter of growth. This is a quantitative or a substantive change in the nature of our community. So thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Kelly, do we have others?
We do. I'm going to try Mel and Dwayne because they're still on here with their hand raised.
Okay.
Hello?
Mel and Dwayne, can you hear us? Or is this Sean?
Hello, this is Sean.
All right, just 1 second, Sean. Mel and Dwayne at yahoo.com. Can you hear me? All right. We still can't hear you. Maybe if you'd like to, on the screen, there's a support number. Maybe you'd like to call that number and see if our tech people can be helpful. Sean, I'm going to move to you next.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Sean. Thank you for your patience there. Go ahead and give us your name and your address, and spell your name and address the commission.
Sean Nestor, SHAWNNESTER, 3360 Chilson Road. Sorry, I got my phone on as well. Do you have me hooked up through the computer or the phone right now?
We have you, it looks like, through the computer.
Okay, I'll shut this line off. Okay. Now I need to unmute this. I apologize. I'm all over the place here.
So, but that's how I feel with these Zoom meetings. So take your time.
Unmute this, so I'll just speak. Some of my concerns, I am the property owner directly to the south of the proposed property on Chilson Road, and I have a few concerns, kind of to piggyback what Bill said earlier. I had not heard about this meeting until this morning from a friend of mine who saw it on Nextdoor. I don't recall receiving a letter in the mail about this hearing. So I was just fortunate enough to be able to catch wind of it to kind of self-educate quickly and then try to involve myself in this conversation. Seeing as my property is being impacted significantly by this potential development, I think it's kind of important that other people in the community have the opportunity to be educated on this. One of my concerns is this bell ringing 12 times a day. Just as everyone else had mentioned, I don't quite understand the purpose other than the sake of novelty to honor the replica in Italy. As I think Mary Ann said, we're not in Italy. We're in rural Livingston County. So I don't see the value in that for surrounding residents such as myself. Secondly, I don't know how, master plan and zoning works, but as far as when I moved out here, this was zoned agricultural, and I just don't see how a commercial building in this rural environment fits the area or the demographic. And it makes me wonder, if this goes forward, what goes next? Does every farm field that we have potentially turn into a McDonald's? Where do we draw the line? I'd also like to add that I submitted a letter. I don't know if, I think you received it, Kelly. Did you not? I didn't see it posted up on the public forum, but I did submit a letter for you guys to go over. But basically it just stated that when I had moved here, I knew that there was Catholic Diocese of Lansing owned a property to the north of me. I knew that nothing had been done with it. Had I known that this development was going to take place, I would not have purchased this property. It was a foreclosure, bank owned. I've put my heart and soul into it, and now I question, where's my property value going to lie after this potential development? Were it to move forward, how will it impact me personally, my investment, and my neighbors surrounding me? I think that the people that are interested in moving forward with this project are very nice people. I have nothing bad to say about them. I noticed that they addressed some of my concerns right off the rip on this meeting, which I greatly appreciate. For example, the trees for privacy, the bell. But the main one for me is property values and the implications for this development for me and my neighbors, and that and traffic. I have this thing muted, so I probably won't be able to hear any response, unfortunately. I'll try to figure it out, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Kelly, do you have any others?
We do. Just one second.
Great.
Okay, moving on to the next person I see is the name on my screen is POW, P-O-W 71400. So I've just added you into the meeting. Can you
Hello?
hear us? Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Go ahead and give us your name.
All right. My name's Pat Powers. I live at 1018 Kellogg Road in Brighton. I'm calling in regard to everyone that I've heard on this commission kind of check their biases. I do live adjacent to the Chaldean campus, been subject to some level of, similar comment going on in this meeting. I think it's not fair to maybe look at this applicant in the same context of the problems that we've had with the Chaldean camp. That I am a active Catholic and a parishioner at Holy Spirit Catholic Church, and I tell you, we're pretty excited about this project, and a lot of hard work has been gone into this development already. And people attending this, I agree, most are going to come on here and tell you that they don't want it, and they're looking at it in the context of all they just think is going to be noise. But we're living in a post-Christian world, and I think people are really hungry for this development. We're looking for a place of reflection, solitude, and worship. And I can't speak for all parishes, but if you check with every diocese or parish within the Livingston County Vicariate, I think we're pretty excited about it, and people are really getting behind this development. And I mean, if we're concerned about bell towers, I mean, it's arbitrary as trying to put a restriction on the train tracks that are crossing at Crooked Lake Road. I mean, I understand some people just don't like bells, but I don't think I'd get hung up, with our biases saying that that's going to be a deal breaker. I think I think this is really needed. I think it's a vision that we all certainly need to get behind. I don't know if you're aware of what's going on in healthcare in general, but this is groundbreaking. This is something that we should really be excited about. To be, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for healthcare delivery of this kind in the country, and the second replicated healthcare delivery system like this in the world. That we have a unique opportunity here, and I don't think it should be dismissed just because you think it's going to be a noise issue. And I should have a voice here to say that, I mean, I'm annoyed, by the Chaldean camp and what they've done, but I've met with Jer and I've met with the team, and I really think they're very sincere with what the plan is here, and I think we should all give them a little bit more benefit of the doubt. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Kelly, do you have any others waiting?
Next will be R. Jones. R. Jones, do you want to unmute yourself? There you
I'm
go.
trying.
Okay.
There you
we
go.
can hear you.
Are we there yet?
Yep, go right ahead.
Hi. Robert Jones, Jones. I live at 3553 Westfall. Obviously, I'm less than 300 feet from this project. I won't go through and repeat what everybody else has already said because I agree with most of it. I'll touch on it real quick. You got traffic issues. You've got the bell ringing, which is absolutely obnoxious. I've lived here for almost 30 years, and to now bring in a bell that's going to go off every hour all day long is just absolutely unacceptable. It doesn't fit the neighborhood. It doesn't fit the character. I think it's fairly obvious to everyone that this is just getting the door open, and they're using the guise of a church to basically bring us a healthcare campus. And I think Mr. Moran stated it quite clearly that we have zoning that would fit the need for healthcare and a campus and an education, but not in our backyard, to use a trite term. It was zoned this way for a reason. Yes, there is a train that goes by, and I knew the train was there when I bought the property, and it's not that bad. If you wanted to bring a train into my backyard now, I'd probably be a little upset, and that's where we're at here. And I think all of the neighbors and everyone that's close to this is going to be impacted negatively. So I'm just going on the record, I guess, to let y'all know that I'm one more that agrees that this should not be here and it doesn't fit the neighborhood. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Kelly, do we have any
Moving on.
more people waiting?
Yes, sir. Next is Dwayne Johnson. I've added you to the meeting. You can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Johnson, can you hear it?
Yes, Dwayne, go right ahead.
All right. Name's Dwayne Johnson, DUANE JOHNSON, 3990 Chilson Road. Got all that?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, good. Like the previous gentleman said, I'm not going to repeat everybody's concerns that I've already agreed with and you all already heard. But again, another voice to say I'm against it. I don't want it. We bought out here for the same reasons everybody else did. And like Mr. Moran said, we already have some areas just north of us, well, excuse me, east of us on Latson Road that are zoned for this on purpose. And you folks planned for that. And it's fairly evident from the rather passionate caller that was talking about the Chaldean community. He kept on talking about it as a healthcare area, not a church, but a healthcare campus. So I think it's fairly evident where the plans are going. And with their vision statement, I've never known any entity to have a vision statement and not chase after the vision. And their vision is to have a healthcare campus. So all that leads to all the traffic and noise, et cetera. So that's my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you.
Kelly?
Next is a phone call participant. The phone number is 248-685-0903. The last four digits, 0903.
Hello.
We
Hello.
can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Melanie Johnson, and I live at 3990 Chilson. My husband and I listen separately, so we could have our own perspectives. I am not in favor of this, and it sounded good in the beginning, but I heard through the presentation, at this point in time, right now it will be just at this point complementary uses. Right now we just don't. Minimal, the right way is not right now. A lot of things were not now, so that could be their honest perspective, but it wasn't. I wish I had heard there will be no further blank, and no one said that, not once. So there was no assurances that they weren't going to continue to expand. If the road does need to be widened for this improvement, who pays the bill? They're not paying taxes, we are. I'm still waiting for a roundabout at Chilson and Latson, so that's my next road improvement. They would probably be able to put and fit a health rehab facility on that grounds, which would require more lighting and more traffic. And at this point, the fire department said they would not be able to serve it, again, at this point. So if they made further improvements, they would be able to protect and serve that area. So more light pollution. The bell thing could not go every hour. That would have to be an agreed upon thing. So just get some things in writing that make the population feel comfortable, because I don't feel comfortable with their suggestion of just a small chapel. So I will thank you. And the commission, you guys did a great job actually representing some of my concerns on the onset, and I appreciate that from you. So thank you and good night.
Thank you for your input. Kelly.
Thank you. Next, we have Derek. Derek. Just added you into the meeting.
Hello?
Looks like, hi, can you hear us?
Yes. Derek?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, this is Derek Sproul, Sproul. I live on 2099 Chilson Road.
Across the street from Oak Meadow by Tanner. I know his wife and his kids.
Are you still there?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I think we missed part of what you said. You want to start over?
Yep. Derek Sproul, Sproul. And that's 2099 Chilson Road.
Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, I just caught wind of this morning. It was on Facebook, and nothing against the church itself. It was just kind of discerning, where it's going to be at. When my wife and I built our house over 10 years ago, I thought this was more of a country estate type area. And, just last year, they developed those apartments, a mile and a half north of me. And I'm just like, man, this is going to turn out like Latson Road, more commercialized. And when I found that out this morning about the church, I'm like, where's this going to end? There's all kinds of properties on Chilson Road, with acreage. Is it gonna develop into more of a commercial type area or what, And I just feel like if you're gonna take an inch, then they're gonna take a mile, and it's just gonna get worse from there. I'm just gonna see more development. I'm just concerned with the property value. And traffic, in that area. So pretty much the same, feelings of, the previous callers. Yeah, it was just kind of disconcerting, when I found out this morning. So other than that, I can just leave that. So.
All right. Well, thank you for your comments, Derek.
Okay. Thank you.
Kelly, do we have any others in line?
So next will be Ian Campbell. Ian, I added you, and then I think Somebody may have jumped ahead of you. Apologize for that. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Ian, we can hear you.
All right. It's Ian, IAN Campbell, CAMPBELL at 3912 Chilson Road. Basically same thing. I'm not going to repeat everything that my neighbors already said. But we're just concerned about road expansion, traffic, the rezoning of ag land, property values, the gentleman that called in from Holy Spirit Church. How big is that congregation at Holy Spirit, and how many people will be there? This past summer, I saw more than 80 vehicles parked down there at the grass area. So they're saying that there's only going to be 80 people there. How many people are going to be there in the summer, and how many cars are going to be coming down Chilson Road? I mean, there's already enough traffic as it is. And so we're just concerned, and we hope that the township denies it. Thank you.
Thank you for your input, Ian. Kelly, do we have any others in line?
Next is Laura McGaffney. Laura, I've got you added to the meeting. Can you hear us? You have to unmute yourself. Laura McGaffney. Oh, there you go.
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can.
Sorry,
You may need to turn down whatever you're listening.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there was a bit of an echo at the beginning. So if you had something on in the background, you might want to turn it down.
There. My name is Laura McGaffney. I live in 5934 Hartford Way. I'm gonna kind of spin it in a different way. I know that there will be a lot of traffic. There's concerns about the bell. I've lived in Italy. I am Catholic. I was a missionary several years, and I've seen the work that this will impact for a positive way. Padre Pio, I've been a devotion to him since I was little. It is something not to be scared of. Your property values will not go down. If anything, they will increase. From a health perspective, it is very impressive to know that top doctors, top scientists, top people from around the world will be focused on Brighton. To have that kind of knowledge, experience, and honestly, to be surrounded by that much wealth is going to impact us in a huge positive way. Spiritually, we're going to have folks that are not going to be rioting. If anything, they're going to protect your area, the zones, the traffic. There's traffic everywhere. My subdivision is used as a shortcut to go through Costco. Do I like it? No. But if it helps the community to know that if your grandchild or your father has an accident and all of a sudden has a brain injury, wouldn't you want the best doctor in the world to treat them? This is different than University of Michigan. We hear these helicopters go back and forth all the time, but to have them so close and not have to be airlifted to where they're just a number. These doctors care, and these nurses are not just nurses. They're nuns that will be there 24 hours a day that don't impact your pocket because they do it there for charity. I am in favor of this hospital because I know the positives of it, and the positives outweigh the negatives in my perspective. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Laura. Kelly, do we have others?
We do, and I just want to just make an announcement. We have a lot of attendees. Many of them have not raised their hand to indicate that they want to speak. So just want to point out anyone who is listening in that does want to speak. If you're in Zoom, please search out the raise hand feature and raise your hand. And then if you're joining us on the phone, you'll need to press *9 to indicate to us you want to speak. Next up is Cynthia Tellep. Cynthia Tellep, if you want to unmute yourself, you've joined us now in the meeting.
Can you hear me?
We can.
You can, Cynthia.
So we have lived here for 8 to 9 years. I'm Cynthia Tellep, T-E-L-E-P, live on 3175 Crooked Lake Road. We did buy out here because of the rural area. We moved from Pinckney. I also am a devoted Catholic. I also went to Catholic schools. I get what the lady was saying before me, and the gentleman from Holy Spirit Church, which I used to go there as well. But I don't get in this area of where it's supposed to be farmland, and the neighbors right behind that area have goats and there's horses around here. The bells will bother them just like they would bother me with an ADA disability of bringing on epilepsy. They would bother you after a while. I don't know if the bells ding every 14 stations of the cross, or if they just ding the 3 times, 6, noon, and 6 for peace and freedom. But I do know that this would very impact our rural community. It would put not only on the animals that are around here that we see every day and the people that have animals, but it would really impact everybody's lives around here. I do believe, I'm happy for the people that, I think Bishop Boya donated that land to the people that have the Grado out there already. I did see pictures of the Grado, and when they celebrated on 9/23 of 2020, none of them had masks on. Well, I do take that back. I've seen a couple of masks in the pictures, but they were not 6 feet apart. I'm also a nurse, and I've seen lots of deaths, and I've held lots of hands of people who have COVID, who have died from COVID, and not anybody on that property when they celebrated that, which I'm happy that they got to celebrate that. But this is a concern, not a concern for our family. How many people left there and went to these communities around in Howell, whether it be McDonald's, Walmart, Meijer? How many people went into those businesses that could have sent COVID to somebody else? I mean, from one extreme to the other, and I do, agree with everybody else that called as well. The lady that just called and the person from Holy Spirit, they both mentioned healthcare, and they both talked to this company. So I do believe it's more than just a chapel, a quiet prayer area. I do believe they have future services, like the second phase of the Terry Shravo Home for the Brain Injured. I do believe that it doesn't stop at the quiet chapel. It goes on, and I think it's going to impact us all. Thank you for listening, and thanks for everybody.
Thank you, Cynthia, for your input. Kelly, do we have any others?
We do. Next, we have Lori Petrulis. Lori Petrulis, if you want to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi.
Hi,
Lori.
Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Petrulis at 2344 Chilson Road. I've been a resident out here for over 26 years. We've seen a lot of growth in Genoa all through Howell. Reiterating again what everybody else has been saying, my concern is with the male and the female, forgot their names, but who did promote wanting this facility to be built. Their comments, and I hope the board will continue to hear that, their comments were all based on a future or medical facility versus the quiet, serene chapel that was to be promoted by the builders and boss company. I just hope you guys hear that they are promoting with their connection to their affiliated church, it's all going to be medical. We don't need that. And as far as a church as well, there are 36 listed church facilities in the city of Howell, or in Howell, in Livingston County, which if they're saying that it's going to be a place for, prayer, meditation, there are plenty of other places that we don't need a hidden agenda like what sounds like this is going to be, as far as bring in this little serene trail-like place, AKA hospital, medical facility, a lot more than what is granted, where it is going to be in everybody's backyards in this area. These people that both talked about what a great thing that this is going to be, they are not even near this area geographically to even comment. Again, they did talk about what a great medical is going to be. So I hope the board is hearing that and will consider that. Also, I'd like to comment on the fact that I too only heard of this as of this morning. So I hope there is more regardless of COVID, there could have been letters, something out to our doors in this area to notify us of what's going on around here, especially with that type of promotion of a church, AKA medical facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Anyone else, Kelly?
Next is phone number ending in 5542.
Hi, this is Jessica Sproul at 2099 Chilson Road. And on top of that, it would be for the address 2185 Chilson Road. It would be regarding my grandparents. They've been here, I would say 26 years now. They both had passed away. They've loved their property here. We love our property here. We like it country. We all love our neighbors. I don't know what more to say. People, they move out here to get away from all of that kind of stuff, to raise their family. And, this is something that, there's other places that they can put this kind of stuff. It shouldn't be in our backyards. If my grandparents were here, they would be up there raising cane at the township. I just found out about this morning on Facebook. Nowhere else. I really, truly feel that the neighbors anywhere that's around this area, they should be notified. We should get some brochures, and you ask the neighbors, the people that are going to be the most impacted by this. I put a produce stand out with produce all year round, for people that are low income families or whatever. It's pay what you can afford. And, we get lots of people. I love the whole community, but I can't wrap my head around this, and it's just too much. I want to keep raising my children in our area. The roads, don't need to be any more busier than what they already are. You drive down Latson Road, it's busy. If they want to do something, do it down there. There's other areas. I just want to keep it simple, but I really truly feel that if you guys are going to want a real opinion, we should get brochures out. Nobody even knew about this really, and it scares me that stuff just pops up like this. And yes, I have drove by that place, and yes, there's been a lot of cars over there and a lot of activity, and I feel there's a lot more people that have pocketbook interests in this that they're not even from around here. And I know several neighbors that even if they knew about this, they would be on Zoom, and they're not techie. So they don't know how to do all this stuff because of COVID. And I tried texting them to let them know what was going on, and they're not for it either. So, I really feel, please get out brochures and please stand behind our neighbors and our community, because we're the ones that actually have to live here and deal with this. They come and go. We actually live here. We pay the taxes here. I don't want to have to move because it's going to get all crazy. I'm here for forever, and my grandparents were too. And like I said, I hope Genoa and everybody takes into consideration us as the neighbors, what we feel. not pocketbook interests. And I thank you and I appreciate it. And like I said, hope to see we get some like brochures and more information regarding this.
All right, thank you for your input. I just want to remind those that have indicated they found out about this just recently. Within a 300-foot radius of this property, those people would have been notified and would have received notification in an envelope that indicates that there was important information in that envelope. With regard to any other information that you could possibly want to look at, it's always available at the township, and Kelly and the staff will be glad to help you look through that and understand better what has been proposed and what we're actually talking about in this particular commission meeting. So Kelly, do you have anyone else in line?
I do. Next member of the public has the last four digits of the phone number 0688. Again, phone number ending in 0688. Go ahead.
Hello.
You hear us?
Yes, yes. My name is Alita Wolney, Wolney. Everybody calls me Lee. And my property abuts the railroad tracks, and I don't know how many feet away I am, but I think I'm a property that is very close by. I have to reiterate everything that has been said against this, not as eloquently as my neighbors have. Mr. Wallbank had a very good point about light pollution, noise pollution. We bought our property in 1968 and we built our home in 1975. So I've been here for a long time. We have a woods abutting our property, and I have a nature trail through the woods. I walk out there all the time. When we first moved out here, the skies were dark and we could see the stars. And that is not the case anymore. We've got Three Fires School that has lights all night long. It lights up the night sky. I appreciate the religious people who have good intentions. However, this is farmland. This is rural area, and it's not the place for this. I'm sure there are huge pieces of property, further away from residential areas that could be utilized for this. So I just have to reiterate what my neighbors have said. We have deer walking through our property. We all have animals, not all, but a lot of us have animals. And it was meant to be rural property. So I would definitely vote against this also.
All right, thank you for your input.
And
Kelly,
thank you. And, I'd also like to reiterate what the lady said about not having gotten anything. Ordinarily, when there's a land use permit and it's near our property, we get something in the mail saying that there's going to be a meeting and, somebody's asking for a permit or whatever. I got nothing. The only way I knew was one of my neighbors dropped a note in the mailbox to me. So yeah, I would like to know if something big like this is going to go on. Yeah, I didn't get anything in the mail, and my property practically abuts that land. So thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, any others?
Next is Chris Peterson. Chris Peterson, please unmute yourself and address the commission.
Yes, Chris Peterson, ChrisPetersen. Address is 2960 Beck Road on the corner of Chilson. Lived here for 2.5 years. And like a lot of people, we did not get any kind of notification of this. And I'd like to make a few comments that maybe no one else has heard. One, I appreciate church bells. It was a call to worship. And if it was done 1 or 2 times per day, I think that would be acceptable. We hear the trains 2 times per day and no one complains. Once every hour is just too much. Location of the building, if you really want solitude, why is the property building right along the lot line next to the adjacent property owner? It should be in the middle of the property. Number 3, if you really want serenity, why are there future plans for daycare, hospital, and so on? That's going to end as soon as it gets developed. And that is obviously the intent. And I want to know who is going to pay for this chapel and who's going to construct it and what's the source of income to keep it maintained? Or is it just going to fall into ruins when the people who want to build something there can't get their money out of it? That needs to be addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Kelly?
Next, we have Kim. Kim, you've been added to the meeting. If you want to unmute yourself.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. My name's Kim Miller. We live at 3150 Crooked Lake Road. We've been here for 6 years. And just to support my fellow Genoa Township residents, we have moved out here for the serenity, for the land, for the quiet, for the limited traffic, and to have livestock. Our livestock will be exactly 275 feet approximate to the location of the proposed church future potential healthcare facility. So we know they will be negatively impacted by this as well as we will visually, as well as automobile traffic, just in general noise. So just to support the comments of the people that do live in the area, we are definitely opposed to this. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Kelly?
So I'm not seeing anyone else with their hand raised right now, but I would like to just remind anybody, there were some people that had their hand up and then it came off. So if anybody out there in the Zoom call wants to raise your hand, this is the end of the call to the public, or anyone on their phone wants to dial *9, that will alert us that you wish to speak. While we're giving that, just a second, I did want to show just the 300-foot mailing area. There seems to be some confusion about who received notice and who didn't. As Mr. Chairman indicated, there's a 300-foot radius that's required to send notice. So I did place on the screen here a map showing all the parcels that would have been notified. Obviously, if someone within that red circle did not get a notice, we'd want to talk to them just to make sure that we didn't miss a step, or that there isn't something that we did that would have caused them not to get a letter. And with that, I'm not seeing any additional indications for raised hands. So I think we can move on with the meeting if you're comfortable.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Thank you to all of those that participated online. We know how difficult it is, and your comments are helpful, and we appreciate them. I'm going to close the call to the public now and open the floor to any questions or comments from commissioners.
I have some comments. This is Jill Rickard. One, going back to our engineer's review, I do believe that if this is to go forward, that it does need to be curbed to better direct the drainage. I agree with that completely. I don't like to hear that additional plantings are going to be excluded. That's been one of my comments. Even if there are trees that are existing on site, there are areas that you can see where they can be planted on this site as well. So I would like to see that continue. Just a general comment, I do feel a little bit at a disadvantage. You know, it was mostly through the review of public comments that we received in advance via email that I had an idea of what was future planned in this area. I think it would be nice if the developer would come back with something of what they think might go here, because, you know, I agree with a lot of our residents. It's hard to give an approval for something if they cannot meet their vision here. I'd hate to see them spend money and then have disappointment later. That's just to be said. You know, I don't like to see them get too far down a road and then find disappointment and then this go into disarray. I think it's a nice idea of a chapel, things of that nature. However, if we do not have utilities and do not have the ability to maintain this site for their ultimate goal, maybe they need to look at selling this site and relocating themselves. But beyond that, you know, I do have concerns. I like the idea of a bell tower. I do not like the idea of it ringing every hour on the hour for our residents. I think that could be a problem as well. But I do like the ability for them to be able to ring it, just not on a consistent thing. I am also concerned about maintenance. And I do believe Commissioner Eric, his comments were very good about a maintenance plan and operational plan so that we could see how this is intended to function. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jill. Anyone else? Jeff?
This is
Go ahead,
Glennis
Glennis.
McBain. So, you know, I'm the child in the group, the newbie who's still learning and navigating through this a little bit. But you know, one of the reasons I wanted to join the Planning Commission is having my own frustrations as a homeowner in the township, and I fall back to the zoning and the future land use map, the master plan. And when we look at zoning as a mechanism to achieve a desired land use pattern, and we look at the future land use plan and a long range vision of how that land should be used and evolve over time, it's very clear that the master plan has this area outlined as, you know, 5-acre units, home, agricultural, residential, and so far removed from the downtown area. I think planting anything in the middle of that with density lights, high traffic is not the intended use of that area. So I'm kind of uncomfortable moving forward without additional information, because I just can't see a 6,000 square foot chapel on 40 acres forever. And when we look at this organization, it is very clear their mission is to develop healthcare. And I personally don't feel comfortable with just the idea that we don't know what's going to go in there and support this chapel.
Thank you, Glennis.
I have a little different take on it.
Go ahead, Jim.
What we have before us is a very specific proposal. And they say they're not going to build a hospital there, they're not going to build a medical school, they're not going to do this, they're not going to do that. No, I don't think we have the right to reject it because we think they might do something else. I think we have to deal with what's before us only. Now, there's some legitimate concerns about that. The first is, I assume our ordinance covers bells, that the sound cannot be more than so many decibels beyond the property line. That's one. So they would have to comply with that and provide us with the appropriate study. Eric suggested an operations plan. I think that's a great idea. And the other thing is the thing that the fire authority said about the curved road. I don't know what that does to a minor straightening of the road. I don't know what that does to the engineering of the place. But at a bare minimum, it has to be tabled, in my opinion. I find it, I don't see how we can reject it, but I'm one of 7 votes, so.
All right, thanks, Jim. Jeff.
Yes. Sorry to if I sound like I'm beating the dead horse here, but gosh, this sounds like an awesome place to be able to be tranquil and at peace with nature. That's why we're all here, most of us. But I think this, for at least for me, doesn't have my support tonight, but it might have my support in the future if the developer and the owners can come back and tell me things like, as Eric alluded to, an operations plan. What exactly are you doing? What hours of operation are you doing things? Clearly, your website is misleading to the citizens. They're believing there's this huge hospital and other things going on there. And I've looked at the site too, and it seems like that's what they do. So when you see a small plan like this in one little corner, it looks like there's a bigger picture. Well, be more specific. Be neighborly with your neighbors and the citizens that live all around your property. Get them better informed, and maybe they might be more behind your proposal. The bell. You can have the bell ring just inside the church if that's what you want, and then you don't have to worry about the noise afterwards. Plantings. If I was able to go to the site, kind of churn through the snow today, and clearly you're going to want to add way more trees to that south side. I'm assuming the travel trailers are on the gentleman next door's property. I can't imagine that the church wants to look at just the property next door for a tranquil setting. So adding way more plantings and way more trees on the south side seems a better use to me. But I applaud the project. I applaud what it's meant to do. It's just missing the details behind it to have my approval. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jeff. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, it's Mary Ann McCurry here. I'm just going to echo the same sentiment that keeps being brought up. Is to me, this is almost like a blank canvas with a splash of detail that's yet to be filled out for the complete picture. The applicant has alluded to the fact there will be additional features and or buildings on this. As Commissioner Mortensen pointed out, we are looking at this project tonight, but this project does not tell us the intent of the operation, who's going to be there full time. If they're not full time there, then what's going to happen to a building that is going to be accessible or not accessible? Who's going to maintain its perpetuity to make sure that it's not left unattended? You know, in its infancy, it sounds beautiful, it sounds serene, but I don't have enough confidence to give a vote of approval tonight without further detail and detailed communications of exactly what this is, what the end result is going to look like.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Are there any other commissioners that have questions or concerns? All right, I see a hand raised for Scott. Scott, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, thanks to all the public. You know, the public is a strong voice, and we hear you. We understand. You know, we live in other communities maybe, but we have same concerns about those communities that we live in. So your voice is not falling on deaf ears. With that being said, there was a lot of comments. A lot of them were stating the same thing, revolving around the bell and traffic and what the ultimate vision for this site is. So I'd like to touch up on a few of those, and I'll at the end of mine, I'll pass it off to Jerry to touch up on a few as well. So specifically to address one of the more recent comments from Commissioner Jeff about trees on the south side. We did receive the letter or email from the adjacent property owner to the south. And he voiced that as a concern as well. So we recognize that as a concern, and we feel that's we can accommodate that. So we would like to just go out and state that we have some trees proposed on the west side of that bioswale that's by Chilson Road. We would simply propose that row of trees would extend along there, as well as another small road near the chapel area. So I believe that would address one concern fairly easily, as well as I believe Jill, you had mentioned there is more space for trees, so add the trees. That would also alleviate that pressure. With respect to the curbing of the parking lot areas, is it easy to do? Yes. Is it more money? Sure, it is. The reason we're not proposing it is not because it costs more or anything like that. Again, the reason is to maintain as close of grade to the existing topography as possible. And when you do that properly, you can manage that stormwater so it doesn't collect into one spot and become more of a channel. So will it run across the parking lot and then across the sidewalks? Yes, it will. And that is the intent. The intent is without curb there, that it just sheet flows over it. So it's a minuscule amount, no different than if you were walking in the parking lot. Let alone again, the intended use for the site is outdoor. So yes, there is a chapel for people to use during wet weather conditions, but that would certainly be a hindrance to many of the patrons there. With respect to why is the building, one of the public, I believe it was Chris Peterson, but I may be incorrect. He had mentioned why the building was near the property edge. That is a valid question. It's a good question. He stated it should be in the middle of the site. Again, the intent is to maintain the integrity of the site as it is. And as you can see, it may be a little bit hard on this particular plan, but you got tree lines to the north of all the drives, and you got tree lines to the west of the chapel. By having the chapel here, it is in a open spot on the plan. I believe maybe the colored sheet to the natural features plan. This one works too. But the intent again is utilize the open space that's there with, no cutting the trees to put in the chapel. With respect to the no masks and the COVID concern relative to an event that happened last year, I hear you. I am sympathetic and empathetic to that cause. My wife is a nurse as well, which may or may not hold any merit to this conversation or statement, but that is not part of this. So I hear you, but that can't be part of this discussion. With respect to traffic and concern over events, there was a public letter that indicated cars were parked on the side of Chilson Road, and in some instances, cars actually passed the site and used the driveway nearby to turn around. That concern would be addressed with actual parking on the site and with a proper monument sign. As we proposed the location, just don't have all the details worked out quite yet of what it will look like. But again, that will increase the public safety and awareness of the site to avoid that. With respect to who pays the bill for road improvements, if this project dictates road improvements and no other issues are outstanding, in other words, this road is currently at a level of service that is acceptable, then unfortunately, financially, a lot of that will fall on the developer, if not all of it, in order to just develop the site. So let's see if there's any other, overall for lighting, a lot of people brought up lighting. I too enjoy dark skies. And we've stated in, not only, I believe it was in our impact assessment, but also in some response letters that the intent is we don't want this to have people wandering around midnight, and we're going to illuminate the site, and in order to make that happen. We want it to be safe, but have the lights on as minimal as possible to accommodate a safe campus while people are using it at appropriate hours. And I'll just kind of end with this before I pass it off to Jerry to talk more about primarily the two biggest concerns being the bell and the future of what happens to the other part of this 40-acre parcel. A lot of these comments are quite frankly, I don't know if it was the intent, but they were pointed at we are being deceitful in some way, that we are holding back information that we know willingly to somehow promote this a bigger vision. And personally, that's unethical. I know a lot of people, again, maybe don't follow ethical principles, but unfortunately, I do. And from my work with this organization is that there is no intent of deceit or deceit to my knowing. And Jerry will speak of the bell and maybe a little bit more on that vision right now.
Yeah, thank you all very much. We really appreciate the time, and it's probably been a long one for you all. And it's been a little bit hard for us to listen to also because of what our desires and plans are. But tell you the overall vision of what it is we're doing, because I think Scott's last point really, really did hit home. Padre Pio was this amazing saint who had this grand vision to build a very special hospital called the Home for the Relief of Suffering. It's very unique. This hospital is an amazing international referral center over in Italy. It's owned by the Vatican. And I'm a hospital administrator by background. And I got an inspiration to work with them to go over, and they always had a plan that would be replicated. And we've got a collaboration agreement to replicate that. So everyone who says the grand vision is to build a hospital and a medical school, they're right. That is the grand vision. The first thing that Padre Pio did before he ever took a shovel to the ground was to build a base of prayer, international prayer. He has 3,500 international prayer groups praying for the success of the Casa Hospital over there. That is why that hospital does so well. This is our foundation of prayer. That is exactly what this site is. This will not have healthcare services on it. You can write that in the approval if you choose to approve this for us. We're not going to put healthcare services. You couldn't put a hospital on this property if you wanted to. You couldn't put a medical school. You couldn't put a rehab center. All those things that we do want to do ultimately. This is our foundation of prayer that we have, along with our prayer groups that we're developing, along with our International Eucharistic Adoration Program. This is sincerely a place of quiet prayer and meditation. That is all. We want to have we talk about it as a pilgrim shrine and a place for people to come and experience Padre Pio. They can't go over there because he has a charism. It's an amazing charism that we're replicating here for people to come and go. It will not be noise. We tried to be as accommodating to our neighbors as possible. We went around and knocked on the doors. We've spoken with several of our neighbors. Honestly, we never got one single negative comment from any of them. And I think all of this about the deceit that we have built into our presentation, that we're putting this here. The reason why we are on this property, 40 acres, you don't need 40, well, you do need 40 acres actually, because we want the natural scope of things, is because the diocese had this property, which by the way, they purchased initially to build a new parish, a full church and a full school. That was the purpose of this when it was purchased. They changed their plans. And then we came in and the diocese likes our vision. And they said, we have this property and you can build your prayer foundation there. So we were very grateful. So we put this, what we've got, our attractions, our meditation sites, our chapel in the open areas, and kept the natural scope of the rest of the thing, just having trails going through for the purpose of trying to accommodate the natural ambiance in the area, and to do this and to be a quiet neighbor for people. So this is really what we're doing. We're not going to be building healthcare. We couldn't, even if we wanted to, and we don't want to. We will build a hospital ultimately somewhere, but not here. And companies have that all the time, where you do a part of your vision here and a part of it over there. Related to the bell, we do want to replicate, we do want a bell tower. It does not have to ring every hour on the hour. We would have liked to have had that done. We understand that. We'll try to keep to within whatever the requirements are on the decibel levels, but we could easily just do this at the Angelus hours of noon and 6 p.m. and that would be fine. And we would be happy to do that. So if you want to write into this that there will not be hospital, medical school, daycare center, I don't know where that ever came up. And people who said they read our website and said that it indicates that we're putting all of this on this property, I'd like them to show me that, because our website doesn't say that. It says this is our vision. We have a foundation of prayer, but it never says we're going to put the hospital on this property. Anyway, I appreciate your patience, your support, and whatever, but it is what it is, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your responses. One of the sources for that international plan, or the healthcare international plan, was in the Livingston Daily back in October of 2019. And essentially, it bears out exactly what you were talking about. We don't have, or we have sufficient beds for hospitals in Livingston County at this time. And they come as it comes as a IFCOM or certificate of need for the area, which is essentially saying we don't need any more hospital beds, and the state wasn't going to approve that. So I know you're aware of that because it was reported. So it's another way to back up what you're saying, though. The site can't be used for that because it just doesn't have the room and it doesn't have the infrastructure, and the infrastructure is not scheduled to make its way down that far. So we appreciate your candor on that. I've been kind of making a list because I don't know about the other commissioners, if we want to just open mic and kind of talk about this a little bit. It sounds like we've got some that are not on the fence at all. We've got others that are on the fence. They'd like to see some more detail. They'd like to see some more things. And I've made kind of a list that maybe we could discuss or put together with Scott, so that if we do consider tabling this, there'll be something that will be pulled together so that we'll have all those questions answered next time around. How does that sound?
That sounds good.
That sounds good to me, because I do think we should table.
All right. And Scott, I'm just going to kind of go down my list, and you've probably got some of this already. I just want to make sure we don't lose any of it in the details. We talked about the southern property and trees at the southern property. So I think that should be included in the plan as to how we're going to handle that, or how you're going to handle that. The curb and gutter rather than the open, parking areas. Understanding what you're talking about, also understanding what our engineer is talking about. I think I would, and others on the commission can chime in. I would rather the gutters, again, just for containment, for moving the water where you want it to go and knowing how it's going to get there, and to keep things from lawn parking and that type of thing from happening. We talked a little bit about maintenance and operating schedules and that type of thing. I think those should be something that are spelled out so that we have those specifically in the plan for a special use. The driveway width, as discussed by the fire department, needs to be addressed. So we're going to have to straighten that out and give them a little bit more room there. We're going to work with that bell issue. I don't know that it goes so far as to need any type of sound study, but I would defer to Brian on this one as to whether or not we can regulate or what our decibels are or that type of thing. So Scott, you can probably get that information from Brian. The idea of masses being held there, I'm sure there isn't going to be a scheduled time, or if there is, we probably should put that into the agreement. But we understand that it's a religious facility and that it will be used for such things. I don't know how accurate we can be with how much it's going to be used until you have an opportunity to be there for a while. So as far as masses go, I think we've got to give it our best guess and go from there. And that's all I've got, Scott. I don't know if others have any more on their list. I know, Jim, you generally have a pretty good list. Is there anybody else that has anything?
Did you pick up operations plan?
I did an operations
Yeah.
so that we know what we've got going on there. Eric had a better idea of what that should look like, so he may want to chime in and request those items that he feels are necessary. Anyone else?
In regards to the operations plan, I'm really looking more for basically a spreadsheet, hours of operation, number of weekly services, how many events a month. I think the Bell, that'd be a good place for that to live too, what the hours are of that and what days a week. Supervision and security was mentioned as well. Is there someone going to be on site when this is open, or is this kind of just free for people to walk trails on and stuff? And so in my opinion, I think many of those types of functions that would happen on this site, knowing the hours and days of operations would be helpful.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else?
I would just even add who to contact if there's an issue at the site.
Good point. Thanks, Jill. All right, not seeing any more hands up. First, before we move on, I'd like to thank all the people that participated and spoke their piece tonight. I'd like to encourage them again, if they're unfamiliar with or have not seen the plans up close to understand what's going on exactly at the site right now. Please step into the township, see Kelly or one of the staff in the township. They'll be glad to show you what is going on with the project or being contemplated anyhow. So we've got that. Well, at this point, I think I want to open things up for a motion. Is there anyone who would like to take a crack at a motion at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I will move that we table the special land use proposal, environmental impact and site plan for the Catholic Healthcare International Church Chapel and Grotto. That's my motion. It's just,
Do we want to include that list of items that they be satisfied by that next meeting, Jim?
I don't think you'd have to do that in a motion to table.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have anything, any concerns, questions?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Kelly.
I'd like to hear from the applicant if they think they would be ready for the next meeting, which would be 1 month from today on March 8th, or if they would like to table to the April meeting.
We believe we can get an operation schedule and address these other concerns in a timely fashion. So yes.
And then I would
Kelly,
ask,
do you want to make the motion table to date certain?
I would like to ask for that, please. It would be to the March 8th Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, that's my motion.
This is Jill Rickard, second.
Well, before you start the motion, this is Joe Seward.
Yes, Joe.
The ordinance does indicate that if you're going to table the request, there should be some direction to the applicant to prepare additional information. So, Chris, what you suggested, I would suggest that's what is required under the township's ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Scott, you've got that list we just spoke about, so that can be your checklist to work through for the next meeting on the 8th.
And if Patty could add that to the motion, that would be great.
Would you support
would
that for an amendment?
Mhm.
Any other discussion?
Excuse me, did you want me to list the items or just put for the items discussed? Either way is fine.
If you could list them, please.
Okay,
List.
got it.
Is that okay with the
Thank you,
motion
Patty.
maker?
Yes, it's okay with the motion maker.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Those opposed? It carries unanimously. We will table this until the 8th of March and thank the applicants for coming in tonight.
Thank you for your time. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have administrative business and staff report. Kelly, are you ready for that?
I am. I don't have much to add. We had not yet received a submittal for the March meeting, although I did expect a small sketch plan project. And then this item will be back. So the next meeting is Monday, March 8th, and those are the expected items. And then rolling right ahead there, also in your packet is the annual report. This is a requirement of state law that we provide an annual report every year. It just gives you a snapshot of all the great work that you folks did last year. And I have nothing further.
All right, so that was our annual report. Any member discussion? Anyone want to vent?
Excuse me,
in
sir,
any
you
way?
forgot the minutes.
Did I forget the minutes?
Yes, sir.
Have I gotten there yet?
What's
Let me
next?
see.
Minutes are after staff report.
Well, not in my script.
They changed
Thanks,
it?
Kelly. Kelly's
Sorry
making me
about
look bad.
That's my mistake.
Sorry.
Thank you again for picking up where Kelly's left me off. I need approval of the November 9th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Well,
I'll make that motion.
I have a few corrections to be made. Patty, what is the best way to review these with you? Is it by page number of the packet? Hey there?
If you could tell me the page number of the minutes, that's easier because I have them here in a different form.
Okay, so page number 58, under the open public hearing number 1, the 3rd line down, it should say the southeast corner, not the southwest corner of Kellogg.
That's page 10 of the minutes, Patty, right? The last page.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
The next page 2, is that right? This is just a grammatical, going to Catholic school with the grammar. So it would be the second paragraph, 3rd line down. It should say they have attempted to and spoken with neighbors. Page 3 is fine. Page 4 is fine. Page 5 is fine. Page 6 is fine. Page 7, under item 3, the last part of the sentence, it says per section 12.02.13. There's no need for the 4 in there. Then down to Mr. Marksom's review of his letter dated October 5th. Number 3, where it says the petitioner reduced their outlet pipe. Number 4 should be its own item. So following 1, 2, 3, 4 should be its own item. 5 should be its own item. Following me, Patty?
Yeah, you know what? Yes, I see all of that, ma'am. I will make
Okay.
those changes. That was totally formatted wrong. Got it.
Okay. And then where it says the petition number 4, that should be regarding water main. That's a separate item under water main.
I see what I did there on number 4. Those are all separate. I see that now.
Okay. Then page 8, in the middle of the paragraph where it says moved by Commissioner Mortensen, regarding to approve the site plan dated September 24th. It actually, the engineer's report is the 23rd.
The engineer's report or the site plan? It
Um,
doesn't matter. I'll change
Site
it.
plan.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And the bottom of that page, second sentence, approved by the township board, and they are now seeking approval of phase, it should say 1. And that's it. So motion to
Okay.
approve the minutes with the corrections noted.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, what do we have next? Member discussion. Anybody want to talk about anything?
I have a question.
Yes, Joe?
On Brighton Road, just over by Vickenbat, Chilson Brighton, they're doing some logging, it looks like, in the property on the south side. Is that what they're doing?
That's correct. The state owned 2 properties in Genoa Township that they identified years ago as access land for Brighton State Rec area. There's 50 acres off Cunningham Lake Road and the 80-acre parcel that is south of Brighton Road. We recently obtained knowledge that they had transferred those 2 parcels out of Brighton State Rec into the forestry division of the MDNR and proceeded with selling the logging and the timber in both of those properties. And we have engaged them on discussions about where they're headed for those 2 properties. And we're currently working with them to determine what steps they may need to take in terms of a site plan review or any other things to address the work that unfortunately has already been done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have something for member discussion. I received an email today from the Board of Commissioners, specifically regarding, they were not able to make the meeting this evening because they have their own meeting, but this is in regards to the Home Builders Association approached them and said that they are very concerned about the fire authority requests for the proposed fire ordinance. For the requirement of developments of 10 homes or more. They're concerned from a building standpoint that this is very expensive and the cost filters down to the consumer, and it filters down to the consumer, which further filters down to the lack of affordable housing. And I was repeated that the Board of Commissioners would not be favorable for such a requirement, and neither would the building inspector. So I am passing along the information that has been given to the building officials, as well as the Builders Association, as well as the county commissioners, that their feeling is that this is not favorable with attaining affordable housing in Livingston County.
I think the problem is that Genoa Township and Brighton Township and the city of Brighton have all adopted the International Fire Code. And that's now part of the internet, I believe, part of the International Fire Code. But we should discuss that at a board meeting. I've always had trouble with that anyway, but and putting cisterns in where there's no fire hydrant, that I've always have trouble with that as well.
Just to provide some background, the Brighton Area Fire Authority is working on updating the fire ordinances in all of their member communities. And so Genoa in particular, years ago, we had met with them regarding the fire flow requirement for either hydrants or tanks. And we had kind of reached an agreement that 10 would be the magic number, so to speak. If a subdivision had 10 or more units, then the requirements for fire flow would be applied. They're trying to put that in writing. It's kind of an unwritten policy they have in the community right now, and they're trying to memorialize that by updating the ordinance to reflect that. It will need to go to the board. Ultimately, the fire authority has to approve it as well as the township board. So those comments are really more appropriately directed towards the board of trustees as they review that ordinance moving forward.
So it's a problem in those other townships as well?
I don't know that it's a problem. I think they're just looking for
Concern,
consistency
sorry.
and ordinances. They have, an ordinance in each community. I think they're looking to have them be consistent. I've reviewed it. One of the things I like about the proposed ordinance is that it locks into a certain International Fire Code edition. One of the problems we had when they upgraded editions was there was new requirements. For instance, our ordinance says you can have a 24-foot wide road, but the International Fire Code was 26. And the current ordinance just kind of allows them to go to a new version when they want to or when it's applicable. And I would like for our community to at least have an opportunity to review future editions so we can determine if the requirements in the new edition are something we want to see in our community, and to make sure that our ordinance is aligned with their codes.
I was going to say, even in Northville, sometimes they would get stuck putting a hydrant in or, fire suppression for 2 houses. So I think we're being generous. I don't think we're hurting them at all. They're just worried about their profit more. Fire protection is something that we should consider for new residents coming into the area.
Right. Any other discussion? I'm looking for a move.
I have a comment, one more, sorry.
No. Go ahead, Mary Ann.
There were communications distributed for purposes of background on the church and the definitions, ordinances of what appears to be structures on this property. At what point in time are communications, is this just something that internally that staff takes care of, or?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think it was important, and the chairman and I had talked about there's structures there. So if any of you went out to, visit the property, it's unusual that part of what someone's asking for already exists. So I thought it was important, and so did Mr. Chair, that the commission understood why there are structures on the property. Moving forward, if this project is approved, then we would work with them to bring the site into compliance. We have kind of a policy here that if you're seeking approval for something, we don't go out and make you tear it down if there's an opportunity that you could gain approval and be allowed to keep it. So if this moves forward, those structures would just become part of a site plan, and we would require them. If for any reason the project doesn't move forward and they don't have approval, they would obviously be able to try and seek remedy potentially through the Zoning Board of Appeals. Or if it's, not allowed by ordinance and they don't have approval for it, we would proceed with enforcement action to have it removed.
And that's kind of where the current status is at this point in time. It's just
yeah, they made application to seek approval. So we're not moving forward on enforcement until this is decided.
Okay. That's my last question, Chairman.
Thank you. I found it interesting that I think within the first 2 or 3 documents, they already had their lawyer involved. So they not only knew what they were doing, they had someone to cover their back as soon as it was found out. But we can make that all smooth over, like Kelly said. If this gets approved, fine. If it doesn't get approved, then we've got another, bit of a tangle to undo and find out, whether they're going to be able to keep them there or have to move everything and take it down. So.
You know what? I do have one more comment. I was remiss. I'm sorry. So a number of the residents expressed today not hearing anything about this. Is this it's a state mandate that a 300-foot notice has to go within? Is that set by the state? Is that set by us?
The state law provides the notice requirements, and it's always a hot button issue. particularly for big projects. You
Yeah.
know, most people feel like there should be a scale of notice depending on the impact of the project. The problem is, you know, it can become very arbitrary. Who gets notice, who doesn't, where do you draw the line, which projects qualify for additional notice, which projects do not. So we pretty rigorously just stick with what the state requires, which is the 300-foot notice.
Right.
Many people are disappointed that it's not more, and it kind of becomes up to the neighbors to then spread the word beyond that, which can be a challenge, particularly in you know,
COVID
pandemic times.
And in this case, everyone who cared is someone who thinks they could hear a bell.
Yeah.
So if you're in earshot of that bell, you cared.
Kelly, was I right in telling them that if they needed to get any more information, to come and or talk to you guys?
Absolutely. The building's open, you know, regular business hours. We try to put everything on the website. I ran copies of the packet for people that needed hard copies. So I will bend over backwards to get someone the information if they desire it.
Well, I think the biggest issue tonight was that they thought that there was this hospital and medical school and all these things coming in, and you would anticipate that there would be a buzz and you would know about it in the neighborhood. So if they thought that it was in fact what we were talking about tonight, then it's understandable to think, well, geez, we didn't even hear anything about it. They're trying to sneak it in, but that's not what's happening, because they're not building a hospital or a medical school.
I have to interrupt. Their website specifically states that they are.
Oh, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I'm just saying.
So
the only reason
that item is closed, and
go
I
ahead,
don't want to be
Glennis.
perceived that we're deliberating on that particular item after the item has been closed. So,
okay.
So word of caution there.
Yeah, and there was some other correspondence today. I don't know if anybody clicked on that Livingston County Daily article from back 2019, but essentially what it said is that they had a plan, but there's no way they could do it because the township or the county doesn't need any more beds. And this, they were talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 beds. And between Washington, Livingston, and I can't remember if they went west or north. Anyhow, they said they had more than enough beds, and it's a certificate of need application that you submit. And they submitted one for 200 beds, and they were told no, they were turned down. So anyhow, anything else from members?
One last thing, as a township citizen, how are things going with recycling and your meeting coming up next week?
So if anyone hasn't had a chance and who cares about recycling to watch the last board meeting, I would encourage you to do it. There was a lot of spirited discussion, and the meeting is still on the YouTube page. There is a recommendation from the township manager to move towards every week recycling. That is at an increased cost, not only to the township budget, but also, potentially to our residents when we get a chance to upgrade our service. So the recommendation.
Mr. Mortensen,
right now,
you've got my $12. I'm all in favor of it, because tonight I will be taking the rest of my recycle over to my in-laws to stuff their bin, because I can't fit it all in mine.
Yeah, well, the problem from a township standpoint is we're trying to understand how many people recycle, because at the end of the day, the non-recyclers are paying for the recycles having their stuff picked up every week. So we're struggling. That's what we're struggling with, really.
Oh, they should recycle more, Jim.
It's the big picture. If it's in the best interest of all of us.
Classic comment I heard when we had a room full of angry people is one guy stood up and said, "You people shouldn't buy so damn much."
Yeah. Or have it shipped to you by Amazon.
Yeah, so
my back porch looks like a loading dock. All right.
It's going to be it's being looked at. We're just doing a little more research.
Yeah, I just wondered how you guys were, how Mike and Kelly and team are collecting feedback from people at this point.
So we've done some research. Jim will hear about it on Monday, but basically Advanced Disposal and Waste Management has informed us that we're one of the highest recycling generators they have. So in terms of the amount produced in our community of recycling, the number is very high. They attribute that to wine bottles potentially because then the weight is so high. They think we have a wine drinking community, which may be true. But
Yeah, you're interfering with that in this residence right now.
Oh,
we are.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
so
moved.
moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks,
Hey, great,
everybody.
great job, Chris and Kelly.
Yeah.
I know that's a lot to put together.